Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Saints and Savages podcast. Before we get started, I'd like to give you guys a little bit of message. April is an important month. It's Sexual Assault Awareness Month. Not to make light of sexual assault, you shouldn't. Rape is always a terrible thing. Should never be made fun of, should never joked about. No one ever asks to be raped. But we also know that the month with the highest sexual assaults, raping, happens in April. And it just so happens that I myself have been a victim of rape. Just this weekend, I had to pay the government several thousands of dollars in taxes. Thank you so much. I would just like to let everybody know that's watching this right now that be careful this month. Watch out. Just know that it's going to be a very rough month. And for those of you who haven't paid your taxes yet, the government's going to come for you. Just know that BASF has let everybody know that the price of lube is going to be going up. It's going to be a rough month. Mike, how are you?
Thank you, Brian. It's a rough time for all of us.
Oh,
I believe
you too?
Oh yes. I, in fact, myself, I'm sitting a little sore this morning.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's been happening for a couple days now. I'd like us to just take a moment of silence. On that note, welcome to the podcast. We are joined again also by our one and only Poker King, DM Master, Blake.
Yes. We actually got the video working. We were debating because I got kicked out of Las Vegas for counting cards. So why I wear this guise today.
Mm-hmm. You have to pay taxes on all that money, huh?
Yeah, no kidding. This is the worst year. Worst year yet. I have to admit, that was not the turn I expected that to take. But we are non-consensually.
Not consensually.
You're kidding.
No one ever asks for that. No one ever wants that.
Yes. And for those of you wondering, yes, that is the one and only, the greatest, Ron Swanson, standing behind our great Brian. He is a light in our lives.
Yep.
Almost as close as Jesus Christ. Not quite.
The greatest libertarian.
No.
The greatest.
Okay, maybe not for Blake.
The greatest libertarian to have ever.
There we go. That's good.
Ever not lived.
Well, once again, guys, welcome to the podcast. Remember to subscribe, hit that like button, share this with all your friends and family. It really helps us to grow the channel, and that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to bring you guys great content, and with that, why don't we jump into it?
Yeah, sure. So if you guys don't remember, too long ago, there was this issue that happened on the border with some Border Patrol agents riding horses that were stopping a lot of these Haitian migrants that were coming across the border. And one of the things that we saw was that they were whipping these migrants. Mm-hmm. And actually, yeah, we'll do that one because I messed up. That's okay, though. We'll do that one then. It's okay. Sorry about that. I jumped to the wrong story. Anyway, yeah. So yeah, there was claims about whipping migrants, and so Jen Psaki was just recently asked about this by the one and only Peter Ducey.
Peter Ducey. No. The jackass. What's his name?
The who?
He didn't Psaki say he sounded like a jackass?
Yeah. Oh yeah, she's a treasure. She's a national treasure. She is going to be well deserved at MSNBC.
And I heard she takes great notes.
Yeah. Well, she has to circle back all the time.
Oh, so. Yeah.
But anyway,
circle back.
So apparently Jen Psaki, this is from the Daily Wire. Jen Psaki said that she will still not apologize. So there's a clip that, you guys can go on and watch. And she was asked by Peter Ducey about, the Border Patrol agents that were supposedly whipping migrants were cleared of all charges. And that, because of what she said and what Joe Biden said, Joe Biden, of course, was quoted in saying, "I promise you that those people will pay." Right. Well, the DHS cleared these guys of any wrongdoings. They were, they had to, I don't think they were suspended, but they basically they weren't allowed to work at the time. They had like desk jobs or something like that. And of course, the guy that took the picture said that there was never any whippings that were going on. Al Jazeera even said that they didn't see that happening. But yet Psaki said that, seeing this stuff, regardless of what the facts may say, that it's a hurtful and hateful thing to see. And so, that
the White House is a haven of trust.
Yeah, and so even though they've been cleared, Jen Psaki still will not apologize for this. Well, lo and behold, our great second savior besides Ron Swanson, Megyn Kelly came out and she told Psaki that you need to beg for forgiveness. All right.
Oh man.
So you can actually go to the Daily Wire.
Yeah, I got it up.
All right. Yeah, and what more can you ask from Megyn Kelly? She's always on top of this stuff, right? I mean, she nails it every time. So Megyn Kelly put Jen Psaki on blast after she said the President Joe Biden openly condemned border agents accused of whipping migrants and then refused to apologize when the investigation led to no charges. The host of SiriusXM's The Megyn Kelly Show, which you should go subscribe to on YouTube, her podcast took to Twitter Tuesday to respond to a video that included Fox News' Peter Doocy attempting to get answers from the White House press secretary about when the president would apologize for saying agents were whipping people.
After the investigation resulted in no criminal charges against them.
Yep. Psaki just kept referring to the reporter to the Department of Homeland Security and wouldn't comment, stating that the department would announce any conclusion of it was already concluded. For crying out loud.
Now they're going to get like an obscure government agency to keep investigating like the FDA or something.
Yeah. When pressed further by the Fox reporter, Peter Doocy, if she would personally apologize for accusing the officers of brutal and inappropriate measures, quote, she again repeated the line that the Department of Homeland Security would announce the results of the investigation and said that she sure will have a comment. Right.
Yeah, the comment will be like, the Department of Justice stands by its investigation.
Yeah, let's just sweep this under the rug because we don't want to deal with this and acknowledge that we like to bend facts to support our narrative.
Yeah. So Megyn Kelly said, so it's inappropriate to comment when there's an investigation, but then why the hell did you and your boss openly condemn these guys in September when there was an investigation? This is Megyn Kelly. Mm-hmm. Apologize, own up to it, beg for forgiveness. She said, done. That's all you got to do, right? Mm-hmm. So what I want to do is I want to go through here and I want to read some quotes. These are from people you may know, from some organizations you may know, from certain politicians you may know. Of course, Joe Biden, I promise you these people will pay. He quoted talking about the whipping of the Border Patrol agents. Kamala Harris, quote, I was outraged by it. It was horrible and deeply troubling. There's no need. There needs to be consequences. Human beings should not be treated that way, and it also invokes images of some of the worst moments of our history, like slavery. Is that what you're saying? I think so.
Yes.
Maxine Waters. Haitians fleeing violence and the lack of credible government in Haiti are being treated like animals. U.S. government cowboys on horses use whips on Haitians as they sought refuge. Why are we following the Trump policies? This horrendous treatment of Haitians must stop now.
Has Maxine Waters in her entire career ever said anything factually correct?
Dude, that is a great question because I don't think so. Not at least from what I've heard. She was like, remember when she was even inciting violence?
Yep.
Yeah.
Go out, get in their faces. Yeah. Oh yeah.
It's not even in her home state. She was inciting violence during the riots.
Trump said, you guys have a right to free speech, protest if you want, make it civil. She's saying, we need to find these people that disagree with us, conservatives, Trumpers, and kill them. We need to go out and fight them. And
I don't think she said kill them. She just said get in their faces. You need to confront them. Go to the restaurants, and they literally did the next day. They went to like Ted Cruz when he was at a restaurant, him and his wife, and just like started getting in their face. It's like, that's inciting violence. That's, when you say, you can't yell fire in a theater or bomb in a plane. Mm-hmm. It's like, there's the reason for that because yes, you have the freedom of speech to say those things. But when it causes an action, it's like swinging your fist in the air. I can swing my fist anywhere I want to in the air as long as it doesn't hit anybody. Mm-hmm. Well, it's the same thing with your words. Yeah, you could say what you want until it causes other people to be hurt. And that's what she did. But they always avoid that crap with her. Mm-hmm. She's always caught saying that stuff, and they always just dump it. Let's see. Vice News. Border Patrol agents are whipping Haitian migrants at the U.S.-Mexico border in Texas. These are all tweets, by the way. You can go look them up. Jamil Hill of The Atlantic. Why are U.S. border agents using whips on Haitians? Axios. To be fair, Axios. We deleted a previous tweet that referred to Border Patrol agents as whipping at Haitian migrants. The story has been updated to include comments from some journalists on the border who did not see whipping occur. So at least they corrected it, but they still came out a knee-jerk reaction and said this. The PBS NewsHour correspondent, Yamiche Alcindor, the angst swung up his whip mercilessly, charging his horse towards the men in the river. The Intercept, Ryan Devereaux, Border Patrol agents on horseback, cracking whips, charging into crowds of Haitians asylum seekers in Texas, shouting at them to go back to Mexico. Democrat operative Sawyer Hackett, Border Patrol is mounting on horseback, rounding up Haitian refugees with whips. This is unfathomable cruelty towards people fleeing disaster and political ruin. The administration must stop this. And our sunshine, light of joy, MSNBC's own Joy Reid. This is beyond repulsive. Are these images from 2021 or 1851? I forgot. One last one here. Rashida Tlaib. This is so sick, and at CBP will continue to commit human rights abuse if we stop it now. Cracking an effing whip on Haitians fleeing hardship shows you that this system simply can't be reformed.
This is, I mean, the fact that these people actually put this stuff up in the internet where it's going to be for all time, and people refuse to call them out for this stuff. You know, this story was pretty much dead until Ducey brought it up again to Jen Psaki, right?
It was literally dead on like the day it came out when all these people sit there and said those aren't whips.
Yeah, I mean, so I'm gonna pull up the said picture where people actually said that this was a whip. I mean, when you look at this, it just goes to show you like the audacity that these people actually think that the average American person is actually a complete and total idiot. Right, to think that they can't see this picture themselves and like deduce what's happening is ridiculous. So here, I'll bring it up, and it's literally this Border Patrol agent on his horse, and he has a hand on the Haitian immigrant.
Yeah,
and that said cord is not a whip; it's his reins.
Yeah. Of course. And there's another picture actually from the other side.
From the other side, it shows
him grabbing it. It's kind of like that picture of Prince William. You ever seen that picture where it shows him? It looks like he's giving the middle finger, but when you go to a side picture, it's actually him giving the OK sign or something like that.
Yep.
And they're like, this is what happens when you jump to a conclusion really quick, right? Which the media loves to do, right?
Yep.
They love inciting, getting everybody on the left riled up. I mean, they are the gatekeepers of the left, and they love to rile them up. You know?
I mean, well, this is what they live for, right? Like these little photo ops that they can twist and manipulate into whatever I guess narrative they want to spin, right? But it just unravels with the smallest of facts and questions. Counter. What is it? Counter.
Yeah. With anything, okay. So, for instance, remember with what's his name, Kyle Rittenhouse, right? Mm-hmm. Immediately, it went to racism. He didn't even shoot anybody that was black. He was the worst racist.
The narrative was like he shot a bunch of black people.
Yeah, worst racist in history. He shot all white people.
And the people that he shot were like pedophiles.
Pedophiles, yeah.
And they were actually during the riot were screaming in his face like, "Shoot me, N-word! Shoot me, N-word!"
And one tried to actually shoot him who shouldn't have had a gun, right?
Yeah, exactly. It was his permit was expired or something. Yeah. He shouldn't have had a weapon.
But this is what the media, the left media, loves to do. They love to incite the left base into being angry at something. It's like, and you always notice how it always seems to happen around election time. It's weird. Like there's never any races. Like anytime a Democrat is the president or anything like that, there's never any racism going on ever at all. The country is completely clear of racism until a Republican runs or a Republican is sitting in the presidency looking to run for re-election. Then all of a sudden, look at all the racism.
Yeah, I think. Sorry, go for it.
This is their overall political strategy, right? They are the champions of the minority. If the minorities don't have a problem, then they have no one to vote for them. So they have to manufacture racism problems when it doesn't exist. They can't call out minorities who are successful business owners they have to talk about the systems against them, and it's everyone's in poverty. They can't talk about protection or charities that are working. They have to talk about how everything's not working so they can keep a vote. If the
Everything's the quote is systemic, right?
Yeah,
it's systemic. Everything's a problem that daddy government needs to solve. But I think you're still right, Brian. I mean, I think the least racist years ever were when Barack Obama was president. I mean, there was no racism whatsoever.
Yeah, according to the left. Well, you remember when Donald Trump was in the presidency, right? Mm-hmm. And of course, the border becomes a big issue again, right? Look at all these children in cages. Mm-hmm. Those were pictures from the Obama presidency. Those were Obama cages. He did that. Now, we've talked about this before, right? I've always said, yes, I support the Border Patrol separating children from anybody coming across the border, because you don't know who these people are. The Border Patrol has said it many times. Mm-hmm. They don't know who these people are, right? Mm-hmm. You don't know if these are coyotes that are just bringing kids across. We don't know if they're their relatives or not. And in fact, a lot of these kids and women that are coming across the border are being raped. They're being trafficked, sexually trafficked. Yes. And so when you for the safety of the kids, you pull them away and sit there and be like, okay, who are these people? Do you know these people? Right. Hopefully.
Yeah, I think what's his name, Ed Calderon.
Oh yeah,
he's kind of like a permissive environment specialist,
mm-hmm.
survival specialist. He's gone on several podcasts, and he's talked about how these cartel members and coyotes will bring with them along a child or something that was sent from Guatemala by himself, right, mm-hmm. on these caravans, and they'll use them as a shield to get into the country. Because right now the atmosphere is permissive for it, right? It's like free entry for anybody who has a child.
Yeah.
And when they separate them and they start asking questions, even before that, they can see the relationship between the child and the adult, how they're behaving. He just shows there's different color wristbands that they put on different kids and things like that, and it's horrible, man.
Well, all this does too is this focuses on is the left's angst for one, law enforcement, and two, anything that has to deal with immigration.
Yeah. Well, I mean, do you guys remember AOC's photo op? She's at the board at the cages,
yeah.
And she's all in white, and she's just bent over, just crying her eyes out, it was a complete and total just photo op.
Yeah, and then
full of crap.
But nobody calls her out on this stuff except for the for conservatives. But then they just the story just dies down. Nobody puts lights of fire into it or anything, And obviously AOC never comments on it. The left never says anything. Her party doesn't discipline her or whatever. She's just let run loose. Man.
Well, what's the basis for this? What's your take on this? The basis for the left going against, or riling up people against Border Patrol?
Well, they want more immigration to come in, so they have more of a voter base.
Wait. Be clear about this. Immigration?
Illegal immigration.
All right.
So, I mean, what does it benefit from them to get more illegal immigration coming in? Why not make policies that streamline our current immigration policies?
Right.
People take 5-10 years working a job in order to get certified citizenship. I'm all for more immigration. Why don't we
absolutely?
Why don't we get those policies in line? What's the benefit?
Except for you, Mike. F you.
Screw you guys.
I guess it comes along the lines that they want more people to depend on the government. Barack Obama thought it was great that they increased the amount of people on welfare. We got more people on welfare. That's a success. That's a terrible metric for success. You want less people on it. But if they have more people depend on the state, then they can have more people voting on them when they want. And illegal immigrants come dependent on the state, even though they don't pay taxes. So it is an insustainable process.
Well, it's also a fact recently, right? I don't mean to cut you off, but all of these illegal aliens that are coming across the border, the Biden administration is busing them into red areas. In the middle of the night, they're busing them into red areas. They're flying them and dropping them off in places like Florida and red states. Thankfully, you saw this little
Greg
thing.
Abbott.
Yeah, he was busing them to Washington. But you know what they did? They grabbed them up and they bust them back out of Washington.
Yeah, I mean,
it wasn't Texas.
It had to happen immediately.
Yeah, they don't want them in
Yeah,
the
no
DC.
way. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you're fine. I remember when Biden first became president and they were trying to show pictures of all of these illegal immigrants sharing one room. They were stacked side to side in the middle of a COVID outbreak. And they were trying to take pictures of this, try and report on it, and they didn't let them take any pictures.
Ted Cruz actually went.
Yeah.
Walked in. And
Several
was like,
congressmen.
I'm going to take pictures of this stuff. And you saw them and they're trying to keep him out of there. And he's like, I'm a sitting U.S. senator. I want to take pictures of this stuff. I want to see this stuff. We need to show the people what you're doing here. You say COVID is such a big issue, but yet you have all these people packed in here like cattle. No, you can't see this.
Yeah. Talking about numbers, immigration-wise, just counting legal immigration, we accept 50% of the world's immigration.
I thought it was more than that.
Maybe.
It's probably more, man.
It's around
They're all
50,
coming,
60%.
They're coming here for the racism.
They're coming here for the racism. That's all 300 or so countries in the world. We're the one that accepts above half of that, tracking legally. We accept more refugees, and there is some debate about how many immigrants a country can support. Some people say it has a racist background, other people don't. But there are a certain amount of taxes and benefits and things you need to do for a first generation immigration. That's why we have to kind of pick, and we are allowed to be a little bit choosy because we have to support these people. Illegal immigration, we're supporting these people and they're not paying taxes, and it really screws up the system. You cannot do this indefinitely. There is a reason why we have a set amount of people we allow, and we push that to the brink.
Well, if you look at history, there's, any nation that falls, and most of the time that you usually look at the history of the Roman Empire, right? That's usually the standard that you look towards.
For immigration-wise.
For anything.
For pretty much anything.
For the collapse of a nation, right? Yeah. You can call them an empire. The United States is not an empire, but you say that, whatever, colloquially, that's fine. I also call it a democracy, and we're not a democracy either. But one of the issues, this wasn't the sole issue, but it was one of the issues. It's like, a chair. You take one of the legs out, the chair becomes extremely unstable. Well, if you allow illegal immigration, you just allow people to come in, from anywhere for whatever reason. Well, that was part of the reason why the Roman Empire collapsed. Now you can sit there and say, it's like, well, what about before, 200 years ago, when people were coming to Ellis Island, when people were coming to the United States unchecked? Well, you know what you also had, and Thomas Sowell talks about this. You had massive outbreaks of disease, right? Smallpox, whatever, you name it. It was, and because
a mixing bowl of it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, same thing now, right? Remember they were asking Jen Psaki, well, are these people going to be tested for COVID? No.
They're actually getting iPhones or smartphones. But to reiterate on the Roman Empire one, I think what immigration did is ultimately change the culture.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Of the empire, and that's what brought the downfall of it, right? I think the capita of immigrant Roman citizens became higher than natively born citizens, right? And so the culture shifted, politics shifted with it, of course, and then everything just falls down.
It was the Goths and the Visigoths, right? Just, they actually, the Romans in the beginning were moving them into the borders and bringing them in because they needed tax revenue.
Yeah. They needed money
to work. Well, you're seeing that here too. It's like, and don't get me wrong. It's like, Blake, I'm with you 100%. I want more immigration. Absolutely. But the
streamline the process.
Here's the thing, okay, but right. The thing is, I want people to come to this country. This is okay. I believe there are Americans born all over the world, right?
In spirit.
Because it's an ideal, right?
Yeah.
America, it's only one thing. It's an ideal, right? Of freedom, of liberty, of in God we trust, right? It's on our coin. It's on our money. Okay, it's called the American Trinity, and it's coined by Dennis Prager. Okay, the American Trinity, and these people that are born all around the world, strive to come to one place, the United States. And they should be able to come, right? Go through the process. Now, I think our process is horse crap. Now, my ex-wife, she's from the Dominican Republic. And we had to go through this lengthy process of her becoming a U.S. citizen, which she ultimately did become a U.S. citizen. But, man, it was expensive. There was so much red tape. There was so much, 2 steps forward, 5 steps back. The government would lose paperwork all the time. And and we went through arguably one of the easiest processes because she was married to an American citizen, right? Mm-hmm. So we went through the fiancé visa process, which was a whole lot easier. But you also have the student visa process, you have work visas and all this stuff. But I still think that the process of becoming a U.S. citizen it needs to be reformed. I'm not saying that anybody should just be able to come in. And I say this for another reason. I'm a member of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated from my college, right? And, I've always argued, I go, if you believe in illegal immigration, well, should we also believe that anybody should just be allowed in my fraternity? Anybody should just, you just say, I just want to be a member of the fraternity, so therefore I'm a member of the fraternity. I could put on the nail, I can wear the letters. No, absolutely not. You didn't earn it. Mm-hmm. You have to earn that. Now, yes, becoming a U.S. citizen should be earned, right? It's a privilege. It should be earned. It shouldn't be the government quandary crap hole that it is right now, right? Because we need to also know that are you fleeing crimes? Or do you owe money to your country or to somebody? Are you bringing diseases here? It's like what's going on? But
are you an enemy of the state? Right?
Sure, right? Yeah. Do you plan to come here and turn on us and mm-hmm. infiltrate the country and do bad things?
I mean, I think also like do your culture beliefs, moral beliefs, and spiritual beliefs completely, disassociate with the American way of life.
Well, and that's the difference between a lot of the immigrants now that we're seeing compared to immigrants 150 years mm-hmm. ago. Because mm-hmm. those immigrants came here knowing full well they would land on their face if they weren't successful, right? Yeah. It was on them.
Yeah, it was all about hard work, determination. There
was no government. There was no government handout.
Yep, I think. Yeah, I think the true American dream was like a clean slate. Mm-hmm. Right? Up until a certain point.
Sure.
After that, it just became political and, it's just, trying to get away from whatever other problems that you had in life. But, I mean, that clean slate, man, these generations of families have come to the United States and just absolutely have leapfrogged, generational wealth in their families, beyond measure where they could have done it in their home countries. And that's the whole thing, right? You can come to America.
Income mobility.
Yeah, and you can have a better way of life for your children, for your family, for your descendants, and build on that and so forth and so forth and so forth. But I think that's gotten lost, man. It's gone. The idea, the dream has been what is it called? Like infected. It's been
washed down, watered down, diluted.
Yeah, it's been like diluted. It's just been like it's just been taken over by these like crappy ideals of the America becoming something different, right? And being an immigrant myself, it's really sad to see it, man. I mean, everything's just changing exponentially when it comes to immigration, man.
Are you first generation or second generation?
What do you mean?
Immigrant.
He's caught in quasi.
Yeah, I'm like, I guess I would be like first generation. I would call myself first generation because I came with my parents, right?
You came with your parents.
Yeah, so first generation.
From your parents' perspective, what
Your English is terrible. Your English is terrible, by the way.
See. I wish I had like a fake mustache to wear this whole.
From your perspective, what was the biggest bottleneck of the immigration process? What was like the hardest step?
I think it's the culture, learning language, adapting, integrating to society.
So it wasn't any part of the governmental process?
No, I don't think so. I mean, immigration now compared to what it was, like 20 years ago is completely different. Absolutely different.
I think it's more political now.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, we're both from California,
Oh, yeah.
And especially like SoCal, right? I'm from San Francisco, but, I was stationed down in like Camp Pendleton and stuff like that. So down in San Diego, LA area. But what do you notice about the culture out there, right? The Hispanic culture out there. It's like you see everything. All the posters are in Spanish. A lot of the TV networks are in Spanish.
Store names are in Spanish. All that kind of stuff. Yep.
Yeah. So you don't have this embrace of learning the culture of the U.S. Right. So if you're not speaking a language, that's an issue with not embracing the culture.
Yeah.
One of the other things I saw living in Arizona too, what I would see was that that you would see people out there waving the Mexican flag, and it's like we're dreamers and we demand to be U.S. citizens and this and that. It's like you should not be waving the Mexican flag. You should be waving the U.S. flag if you want to be taken seriously.
Yeah, that's the problem, man. A lot of people that come here, they want to keep their full identity of their previous country where they come from, right? And it's like that's just wrong. Like, you come here for a reason, right? You come here to become American. If you're going to become American.
Oh.
There's no shame whatsoever in embracing where you come from, your ethnicity, your home country, whatever it is, your ancestry. There's absolutely no shame in that whatsoever. But if you put that at the forefront instead of the country that you're living in, of where the country that's protecting your way of life, that's providing for you, a job, your security, all that kind of stuff, then that's something that I completely disagree with. But I think that mentality, I think it's the small percentage of people like the dreamers, right? Most dreamers are not like that. They embrace the American way of life. Like, if you talk to them, you're like, what are you? Are you, let's say, Guatemalan, Mexican, or are you American? It's like, oh, I'm American. I grew up here. I learned, English was my first language, all that kind of stuff.
Have you ever referred to yourself as Mexican American?
Oh, hell no.
Yeah.
Well, Teddy Roosevelt said there's no such thing as a hyphenated American.
Yeah, right? There's not. Absolutely not. It's complete BS, man. Because they just want to put you in another different checkbox, right?
Sure.
That they can put a different demographic on you, and that's stupid.
Well, European immigrants coming to this country, because this is one of the things the left likes to tout too. It's all like, we had unabashed open borders for European Americans coming over in, the early 1800s, right? Well, the thing is that when those immigrants came over, yes and no. When those immigrants came over, you know what they did? If you were Irish and you spoke Gaelic, they refused. The parents refused to let their kids speak Gaelic. You had to learn English. You had to speak English.
You can only speak your home language at home.
Yeah. If you came over and you spoke German, nope. If you came over and you spoke Dutch, nope. You need to speak English. In fact, they even made it easier to say their last names, right? We're going to sit there and shorten our names. My last name is difficult to say. I'm not going to say it on air. You can go look it up or whatever. But I'm sure at some point my last name was different. A lot of people, they sit there and they could look at their names. Their names have been shortened, easier to pronounce. I'm not saying to do that. What I'm just saying is that they embraced this country and they wanted their kids to have the easiest time possible assimilating, right? Even themselves, right? And this is the only country in the world where when you become a U.S. citizen, you are now a U.S. citizen.
Yeah.
If you go to Japan and you become a Japanese citizen, right, let's say you're from the United States, you're always going to be an American. If you go to Germany and you're from anywhere else but Germany and you become a German citizen, you're always going to be from wherever else you're from. If you go to Mexico and you're from wherever country you're from, you're never going to be a Mexican citizen. Yeah. It's never going to happen. The United States is the only place where this is thought of. It's a unique idea. But to get back to the language. We have a topic here that I want to get back to, and this was the original one I was supposed to talk about with Maxine Waters. Apparently, she's big in my topics today for some reason. So Maxine Waters accuses Alabama Governor Kay Ivey of plain racist ignorance after Ivey says that people will have to learn Spanish if Biden keeps sending illegal immigrants into states. So this is from The Blaze. Ivey, who is currently seeking re-election, issued a campaign ad in which she said that if President Joe Biden continues sending illegal immigrants into our states, everyone will need to learn Spanish. My message to Biden, no way, Jose. Ivey declares in the ad. During an appearance on MSNBC, Waters slammed the Alabama governor. This is plain racist ignorance in your face, the congresswoman declared. We don't have time to deal with that kind of stupidity and that kind of ignorance. So, of course, Ivey had to respond. There's nothing racist with telling the truth about disaster Joe Biden is causing with illegals invading our country. I'm not going to be lectured by a liberal congresswoman from California. We'll handle our business in Alabama.
I like how the white lady was from Alabama and the black lady was from California.
Well, but the thing is like, okay, is it racist to demand, not necessarily demand, is it racist to expect that you learn the language of the country you're going to live in, right? Mm-hmm. I've traveled all over the world. I went to Portugal. You know what I did before I went to Portugal? I was looking up words, how to say certain words, obrigado. So at least that way, if I got help with something, I could say thank you, Mm-hmm. I've learned Spanish, obviously, because my spouse was Hispanic, so I learned Spanish. But anywhere you go, you try to learn the language to fit in a little bit. But it seems that on the left, it's like it's always pushed against. No, you shouldn't have to learn English.
That's racist.
Right. Yeah. It's racist to ask them to learn to speak English. Now, the United States doesn't have a national language, right? Like a lot of countries have national language. Like Canada, it's English and French, right? It's actually like a national language.
I don't know, man. I would disagree. I would say the national language is English.
No, but I'm saying it's not written in the Constitution.
It's not. It's not officially written, no,
Yeah,
but
sure.
it's understood.
No,
I mean,
I actually think you should learn another language.
Mm-hmm.
I think that in the United States, it's a unique place where we do have a lot of Hispanics here, and learning Spanish would be beneficial to you, right? But I also know for a fact, I know people who can't speak English that have lived in this country for over 20 years, and they are completely dependent on their spouse for everything because they can't speak English. And it's not that they couldn't have learned; they just refuse to. That's on you.
yeah.
Of these encounters along the border with illegal immigrants, in the past 12 months, the percentage of repeat offenders doubled from 14% to 28%. These repeat offenders were kicked out of this country because they were sex offenders or previously convicted of a crime. They were kicked out, 28% returned, which is a massive increase. So when we talk about a border crisis, these are people we don't want. They are felons. I mean, we're not saying all of them are felons, but the ones we've kicked out who are felons, they are coming back, and it's getting worse. The rate at which they're coming back is getting worse.
Well, I have a question for you, Mike, and not to go too far down the rabbit hole, but why does it always seem that the United States can't enforce its immigration policy, but every other country in the world can? For instance, if you were to sit there and say to somebody on the left, well, why don't we just have an immigration policy like Mexico?
The fact is, Mexico's actually very, very strong on immigration.
Yes, extremely.
They actually, their southern border with Guatemala, they're actually like very, very, very tight on immigration. But the thing is, the push for immigration from South America into Mexico and then, ultimately to the U.S. is just so massive. And not just that, it's a business, right? The cartels, so even some people, I would say Mexican government officials actually facilitate it. To a point to get money for.
But why does the left and the media feed into this narrative that the United States has no right to protect its borders or to allow who it wants in?
It's a complete lie. The fact is that they have the border open on purpose. That's just what it is.
But why?
Oh, it's because they want to get more people here and be beholden to them so that they vote for their party.
But we've already done a study, right? Or we didn't do a study, but we've seen studies on the Hispanic population where it's 50-50 now, Democrat, Republican.
So this is something I wanted to bring up. The Republican Party for years and years, man, have always been very I wouldn't say completely anti-immigration, but for good reason. They've been they know the problem's there, and they'll fuss up every once in a while, and then they'll die down and kind of keep the status quo, right? And they'll let the Democrats keep doing what they're doing. The thing is, if they would just put an inkling of effort into like embracing kind of like the immigrant demographic, especially the like Latinos, as we saw like Latinos for Trump. The Latino community like was hugely popular for Trump.
Oh yeah,
and compared to previous years or any other candidate. But if the GOP would just, I don't know, man. I don't know if they would just push for immigration reform for a certain way, kind of revamp the immigration system or something. Man, I think the Democratic Party would just completely collapse.
Yeah,
their entire narrative, everything they do, their entire platform, everything would completely collapse without the support of the immigrants in this country.
Oh, if you just take out the leg of racism from the Democrats, they're done, right?
Yeah,
you don't have those race hucksters like what's his name?
What's hilarious is that they always tout that like, racism is the problem in this country. What they don't understand is that other ethnicities like Mexicans, like Asian people and stuff like that, can be extremely racist.
Yeah, absolutely.
Extremely racist. And that's not saying that that goes across the board, nor does it say that I'm racist, because I am not whatsoever. Well, no, I'm not. But unfortunately, the culture is that though. Yeah. Like besides the United States, cultures are very anti. I'm not going to say against just black people, but just against any other ethnicity. They want to keep their national identity, their ethnic identity. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it's something that is completely like glossed over by the left, right?
Internal tribalism has been part of human psychology ever since they existed, right?
Yeah.
So you always root for your own team. You're always a little bit implicitly biased towards your own team. And, bias is just another word for preference. And we all have preferences. We all have biases. The only problem is when you allow those biases to melt into your big, important decisions, who to hire, who to make friends with. And there are tricks you can do to get over those implicit biases. But just because you have implicit bias doesn't mean you have systematic racism or that you are racist. And, being part of a melting pot.
That's just your white privilege
Right.
coming out.
I mean, it's hilarious though, but it's true. I mean, I would, like ethnic minorities and stuff will like, just clump together, whether it be at work, community or anything like that. In my previous job, I worked in warehousing and things like that for audiovisual. And our warehouse in Philadelphia was pretty much dominant, like 98.9 or 99.9% like Russian or like, from Eastern Europe. Yeah. Right? And they spoke like Russian in the warehouse.
Sure.
And there was like one or two that would only speak English. Right. And so it's, and if you go to like California, it'd be like, Hispanic and so on and so on. It's hilarious, but it's true. You always gravitate towards, the cultural, people that or the culture,
There's a free modeling program for behavioral analysis you can download, and there's a model that's based off of small decisions that you want to be on. If you just have like, I don't know how you measure this, but let's say you have a 10 or 15% preference towards your own group, just that slight 10, 15% preference will coagulate people into their own respective groups, and you have community gatherings. It doesn't take much for you to want to be around your own group. And it's not necessarily a bad thing.
Oh, you see it. You see it in high school cliques, right? Yeah. You see the jocks hanging out with the jocks. You see the preps hanging out with the preps. The skaters hanging out with the skaters, right? Is that biased? Well, yeah, it is, right?
Absolutely.
You're putting likes with likes. You tend to fall into those areas that you seem more alike, right?
That you share beliefs with.
Sure. Yeah.
Whether it be social, moral, or spiritual, whatever, political. Yeah.
And the only problem is when you start bullying or hating the other group. Then that becomes a problem. As long as you can all hang out, it's no problem.
But that's human nature, like you said, right? Yeah. I mean, there's always going to be things that you're, empathetically opposed to, right? Mm-hmm. There's going to be things that you just don't want to do or don't want to be around, and there's nothing wrong with that.
But what makes it easier to fit in with one of these groups, right? Speaking the language of that group.
Yeah.
Whatever that language may be, you get a bunch of Beckys together and they have a certain way that they talk. Well, that's their language, right?
Or like connotations that they say, or like, slang or whatever it is, right? Yeah. You'll fit in better if you actually speak the language.
Sure. Well, I mean, coming from the West Coast and slowly moving out towards the East, South.
So different, huh?
Well, yeah, exactly. But the thing is like you adapt to the language and you start picking it up. I notice in the South, you start picking up a Southern twang a little bit, like some people will ask me sometimes, like, where are you from? Because it's like you have this California accent, but then you get this Midwest, and then you have some Southern slurs, and I'm just like, I've been all over the U.S., man. You pick that stuff up, but it's how you fit in, and we know this better. You know who knows this better than anybody? Hillary Clinton.
Oh my gosh,
she loves to come out with the certain slang depending on who she's talking to, and it's usually with black folks,
and
right?
people are just like staring at her like, what?
Yeah, it's always cringe though, right? With her, it's always cringe because it's not true, right?
Yeah.
Like if you're actually truly trying to fit in, there's a difference. You can tell,
Well, I mean, also like technology has kind of like shifted everything, right? Now everything's recorded and on the internet. So like back in the day, like you could change your accent from country to, from state to state, whatever you
and
spoke,
only the
right?
local group will be cringed out by
exactly. But now it's like plastered all over the internet.
But
so.
Hillary gets a pass. She has trauma from being under sniper fire. So,
yeah. Well, to get back onto what we were talking about with the language, we heard Maxine Waters saying that that's racist, that the governor of Alabama will say that maybe you should start learning Spanish, which I arguably agree. You probably should start learning Spanish, maybe even Chinese. Whatever, learn another language. But the Guardian says we need to be careful about demanding migrants speak English. Now, this is in the UK, right? But they said it seems sensible. It seems a sensible expectation, but policing people on their language abilities can come across as arbitrary and make anti-immigration sentiments and mask anti-immigration sentiments. It doesn't quantify how much English one must learn in order to be accepted into the eyes of those making the demands. For me, it sets the same abominatory precedence as the phrase, I'm not racist, but the statement, I'm not anti-immigration, but they should learn English, if left unchallenged, can become a dangerous criterion by which some people decide which foreign nationals they tolerate and which they don't. When my ex came to the U.S., she could not speak English. We used to communicate through texting. That's how we talked, right? She could read and write English because that's what they taught her, right? But when she came here to the U.S., she could literally, you knew her. I mean, even now, her English is great. But
it's on point.
Yeah,
but she worked at it, though.
Yeah, exactly. But that's the thing. When she came here, her thing was, don't say anything to me but English. Nothing, right? Everything she watched was in English. Everything she heard was in English. And I remember there was a breaking point. We were at church, and she was sitting next to me, and all of a sudden she just like started crying, right? And, it's not unusual to see somebody crying, but there wasn't specifically anything that the person that was talking about was saying that was emotional. And so I look at her and I'm like, why are you crying? And she was like, I understand everything, right? But that breakthrough, that moment of clarity, now it's like you're in now. You got it, right? You can understand things now. But she took it upon herself to make sure that she knew the language because she needed to fit into the culture. She needed to become employable, right? Because she wanted to start working, and she wanted to go finish her college education, which you have to be able to speak English to be able to get the college education here, right?
And she went into a STEM field, no less.
Yeah. Well, don't get me wrong. I've had many of professors in college that their English was not their first language. I learned calculus from this guy, and he barely spoke English. And calculus is hard. And calculus 2 was hard enough, let alone this guy's accent. I was just like,
oh man, I remember my dad. I think he learned how to speak English. One of those like super old school learning things. I forgot what they were called, but they came in like these big like blue cases, and I think he still had them like 10 years later, man. But it was just like, it's hilarious because they came in like 100, like a packet of 100, and you have to like go through all of them and stuff, and that's how you learned English. But well, dude, it's hilarious, man. Like how you just got to put in the effort, man, and you get rewarded for that.
Well, here's the thing, though, right? What I was talking about when I traveled, and I'd learn a little bit of the language. Well, one of the things that I told my ex, and what I tell anybody that comes here to the U.S., it's like, just try. You don't have to be able to speak English perfectly. Just a couple words is all you need. And everybody, I'm telling you, 99.9% of the people who see you trying will give you 100% effort to help you with whatever you need.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
If you don't try, you just like, you speak whatever language. You're not even going to try to speak English. It's like, well, why should I help you? Now, granted, most people are going to try, but I noticed that too. Even in Paris. And I almost refused to try to speak any French whatsoever. But you pick up a couple language, especially when you're getting a taxi or something like that. You try to just get a couple words here and there. And even the French, as rough as they may be, much rougher than the U.S. I don't care what anybody says about the United States. The United States is one of the easiest places in the world to live, to get along, to communicate in. But even just doing a couple words here and there got me a long way. Same thing like I said in Portugal, just being able to say obrigado, it's like, and then tweak it a little bit, right? Learn the flow of the word, right?
Mm-hmm. It must have been very difficult to be in France and try to learn how to speak surrender.
Yeah. So
or just voila.
That's French for
voila.
But yeah, it goes a long way just to put in a little effort. Okay, so here are 5 reasons why you should learn the language of your host country. This is why Maxine Waters is wrong. Okay. Number 1, it makes life abroad 10 times easier. Asking for directions, knowing where to buy your groceries, what question to ask when you're buying certain things, interacting with somebody during an emergency, learning the culture, understanding politics. These key things, just by learning the language, is going to help you for miles. Right. Yeah,
I mean, having knowledge of the language to a certain degree also helps you, avoid being taken advantage of.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, racism does exist. We're not saying it doesn't.
In every country, every culture.
I think like what is considered the most racist city in the world is Tokyo.
Or Seoul. I lived in Japan. Seoul. Asians are extremely racist.
But anyway,
to each other.
But I was saying, like, being taken advantage of. I mean, like imagine you're trying to buy a house or something like that, and the realtor's racist, is trying to take advantage of you, blah, 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 right? Like if you can't even read what the contract says, you have to get it translated and all that stuff. It's just more work, right?
Or they're just a bad person.
Yeah, it's just a bad person. But at the same time, it's like, it's up to you to take care of yourself and your family.
Yeah. Right. A crook is going to try to take advantage of anybody, regardless of whatever reason. It doesn't necessarily have to be racism. They're just going to try to take advantage of the situation.
Right.
I mean,
that's their job. That's what they do.
yeah. When I lived in Japan, being able to speak a little Japanese went a long way, especially when you got a honcho, a cabbie. That's not a racist term. You'd get a honcho, and they'd take you somewhere, and then they'd sit there like any honcho would try to do. It's like, I'm gonna try to get a couple more bucks out of you. It's like, no, dude.
Yeah, like any other country, man. And if they know you're a tourist, like I think I heard it like in Paris a lot. If they know you're a tourist, they charge you more for everything.
Oh, when I went to the Dominican Republic, same thing. I went to a store. I was looking at some stuff I wanted to buy. My ex was like, she walked me out of the store. She's all like, you know what? Wait right here. She's like, I know what you want. I'm gonna go get it. I was like, so she went in, got it, came back out. She's like, that guy was going to take complete advantage of you.
Gracias.
Muchas. All right. So here, I guess into our next one. Proficiency in more than one language makes you more employable, right? We talked about that earlier. Yep. All right. I don't know. One of our great friends in our church, right, besides you, speaks Spanish and English. Mm-hmm. That makes him extremely employable in the job that he does, right? Somebody comes along, there's an emergency, whatever, he could speak Spanish. Mm-hmm.
And he can kind of understand all the other romantic languages to a certain degree.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But okay. Immigrants, they contribute a ton to the economy, right? Yeah. I mean, most of the undesirable jobs are unfortunately done by immigrants, right? And I think that's also something that's
there's debatable on that.
It's slightly debatable, but I think the figures do skew towards that. They don't completely dominate it, 100%, but sure. I think it is like probably like 70-80% of it.
Yeah, low education, repetitive jobs where it's like you don't, anybody could do it from the age of like 13.
Yeah. I mean, if you were to ask somebody like, oh, who does all the fruit picking in California? You're gonna say Mexicans, right? I mean, it's just the way it is.
Oh, let me ask you this right now: if you were to ask the question, what race are gardeners?
Latinx.
Okay. Now, if you would have asked somebody that same question 60 years ago in California, you know what they'd say?
Mexicans.
Asian.
Oh, Asian. Really?
Vast majority of gardeners in like California,
landscaping and stuff.
Everything. Were Asian. Thomas Sowell talked about that in his book in Ethnic America.
Really?
Yep, they were Asian.
Just goes in the cycles.
Did they get like pushed out or something? Well, or like generational wealth? Like they kind of started.
They moved out of it, right? Yeah. So in New York, it was the same thing. Every generation that came in. So Irish, right? Irish did all the crap jobs, right? Mm-hmm. And then after the Irish, then it was like I think the Italians came and did all the crap job. There's also two different groups of Jewish that would come over, right? There was the first group of Jews that came over from like more Central Europe, and then later on from Russia, right? Now, the ones that came over from Russia, the Jews that first came over before that from like Central Europe, did not like each other,
right?
But same thing, they did the crap jobs, right? Every immigrant class that comes over here starts out doing those jobs because it's your easiest way to get in.
Yeah,
You
have something to say?
Go ahead.
I was just going to make a comment about, you said white privilege earlier. What about Asian privilege? Better scores?
No, that's white privilege now, man. So,
that's the same white privilege? Or
it's so true, though.
Well, again,
make more money.
Thomas Sowell for the win, man. He just knocks it out of the park. He writes in one of his books, I forget which one it is, Racism and Culture or something like that. It's one of his more newer books he talks about. And he lists out all of the ethnicities that produce more than whites do, right? Because the contrast is always, I know we're going down the rabbit hole on this, but you brought it up. The contrast is always, they always pit whites versus blacks.
Yep.
It's always those two against each other.
And then Hispanics in the middle.
Yeah, right. And, well, they try to do now is they try to almost kind of clump it too.
They're trying to clump it, but Hispanics don't like that.
Yeah, but they never, Thomas Sowell brought this up. He goes, well, what's white and what's black, right? Someone from Italy does not consider themselves a white compared to somebody like if you're from Ireland.
Yeah.
They're two different cultures, right? Yeah. Well, somebody who's from the Bahamas doesn't consider themselves African, right? Or Nigeria, or look at the different countries in Africa, right? They don't. A lot of them don't get along, right? They don't consider each other the same, culture.
I am pretty sure first, second generation Nigerian immigrants
outproduce whites.
Yep.
But you're always going to sit there. They're always going to sit there and say, well, blacks as a whole, right? Because Nigerian immigrants would be a small portion of the population.
Yeah, I think it's also Indian American now from like India, right? From Asia.
Yeah.
When we think of comparing this group for white privilege, you have to think of like the underprivileged minority. Where do they usually live? Democratic controlled cities, Chicago, Suburbs, Detroit. Like, do you have a lot of underprivileged blacks in suburban areas?
I don't think so. I mean, not demographically, how it breaks down. But I mean, I'm sure there is. You know, there's always a certain percentage.
But the vast majorities are in these inner cities, which is a
yeah.
crapshoot of a lot of.
But you know why though? Why that is though? It's because those are subsidized housing, right? If you incentivize poverty in a certain minority set, then that's going to perpetuate that, right? If you incentivize mothers to not get married and have kids on their own because of tax purposes and housing purposes, then that's just going to contribute more and more to poverty and, you know, degenerational wealth.
Yeah. Right? Did Thomas Sowell ever talk about maybe in the 60s, 70s, right before LBJ, how African Americans were doing a lot better with families, businesses?
First of all, we have to preface LBJ. Screw that guy.
Worst thing for minorities.
You guys want to explain just a little bit about LBJ?
So he you know, everybody always credits him with the civil rights, right? Where go look it up. Go look up his quote about he'll be having those you know what's voting Democrat for the next 100 years, and he uses the N-word. Right, that's the person that they always look to, saying that's the guy that did the civil rights. When it goes all the way back to what's his name, became President General Eisenhower. Civil rights actually goes back to General Eisenhower and the Republican Party, right? Of course, then they always have to sit there and say it flipped. Well, the party's flipped, just a bunch of garbage crap
the
too.
Dixie,
but anyway,
Dixie
yeah, but yeah, first, yeah, but with President Johnson, you know, screw that guy. He was a racist. Out and out, flat out racist.
Absolutely.
Yeah, he wanted to destroy the families, make them more dependent on the government to get the fathers out of the home. I know there was a lot of, you know, voting and other cultural problems in the 60s and 70s, but they had more success and stronger families back then than they do today.
You know what other president kind of spearheaded legislation against targeting minorities?
Woodrow Wilson.
Biden.
Oh, what? Yes.
The crime bill?
I mean, and
I believe
everybody
forgets the crime bill. Yeah.
And he also multiple times has said the N-word on record.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Oh yeah, let's get back to this right here. 5 reasons why you had a good point. We need to have just like a talk about Thomas Sowell one day, and we will.
And the historic flip between the parties. We should break it down.
Again,
that would be
which
great.
Is bull crap. That's a lie. Anyway, so another reason why you should learn a language of your host country is communication leads to friendship. When in your host country, making friends with natives is likely an easier task when pursued in the local language. Right? Cultural perspective. I'm going to speak through these last two because I got one more thing I want to talk about. Cultural perspective. Those individuals can then, in turn, share foreign news and provide ideas and opinions regarding current events and world culture to others who may be less informed in hopes of closing the apparent cultural gap. And number 5, foreign language makes you smarter. It's been proven people who can speak multiple languages have a higher IQ.
And lower chance of developing Alzheimer's.
Exactly. It is significantly proven fact. Polyglots are significantly more intelligent than those who are monolingual. Learning a second or third or fourth language improves cognitive skill, creating critical thinking, and can even slow brain aging later on in life, as you said. The results of a study conducted by researchers at the University of Edinburgh showed a disparity between the cognitive functions of monolinguals and multilingual individuals who were tested twice, early on in life and then 65 years later. Those who learned one or more language during their lifetime, even during adulthood as opposed to childhood, displayed better cognition than those who only spoke English. This is why you should learn a second language, whether you are here in this country, for instance, the United States, you should be learning a second language or at least trying to speak, bits and pieces. Or if you come to this country or any country, you should learn the host country's language.
Yep.
All right. And then we're going to get to our last one. This is from Bible Study Tools, the Tower of Babel. So being saints and savages, we need to talk a little bit about religion, What can you two gentlemen tell me about the Tower of Babel?
They built a tower to try to get to heaven on their own efforts rather than by the covenants of God. God did not like the display of trying to cheat into heaven, so he confounded their languages, and so they couldn't understand each other, so they fell.
Complete waste of time.
I don't even have to read the rest of this, but yes, you are absolutely right. Genesis 11:4. Then they said, "Come, let us build ourselves a city with a tower that reaches to the heavens, so that we may make a name of ourselves. Otherwise, we will be scattered over the face of the whole earth." The descendants of Noah were living in the area of Mesopotamia and Babylon. They settled in a land named Shawnee. The population was growing, and they all spoke one language. The people decided to build a tall, proud symbol of how great they made their nation. The Babylonians wanted a tower that would reach to the heavens so that they could be like God and that they would not need him. They began constructing a great ziggurat. God did not like the pride and the arrogance of the hearts of the people. God caused the people to suddenly speak different languages so that they could not communicate and work together to build the tower. This caused the people to scatter across the land. The tower was named the Tower of Babel because the word Babel means confusion. This story is a powerful reminder of how important it is to obey God's word and not think that when we can build a successful but godless life on our own. Now, will you say, well, doesn't that kind of coincide with what people are saying, that you shouldn't have to learn the language? We shouldn't all speak one language?
Yep.
Well, God, he clearly said it. He wants you speaking different languages so you're confused. Well, if you're confused and confounded, you can't work together as one to become powerful and successful, as long as God is at the center of it.
And you can also discuss your differences. You know, you can also resolve issues with each other, other people that speak a different language. You can't, communicate your beliefs, your ideals, and I mean, the list goes on, and that's a great reason to just be able to understand other people in other languages.
Yeah, but at the same time, the left is also changing the meaning of words and demanding that we learn them and know them.
And inventing words.
Inventing words.
That's the craziest thing, man. They're just inventing words, and you're just like, I mean, I can understand a word being invented for a certain reason or an item or something like that, but when they invent a word that's already been, there's already a word for that certain item or thing or concept, it's just
liberal.
Yeah.
And it's destroying
Latinx.
Yeah.
Like,
How do you feel about that, Mike?
dude, I am.
Latinx.
You can't understand. I'm pretty salty about it.
Latinx. That sounds like a Kleenex product.
No, it's a toilet paper. Wipe your ass with it.
For cleaning the crap out of your
Honey, where's the Latinx?
Yeah, which the romantic languages are purely based off of male and female.
Yeah.
gendered language.
I saw on the way here to the studio, I was listening to a podcast, and they're like, somebody's like, I heard in Spanish how they say non-binary in Spanish. It's either the female or the male version. No binario or la binaria or something like that. And everyone's like just dying about it.
Well, there's another thing about English though too, right? It's like they always, English is this white man's white patriarchy language, right? English is an amalgamation of so many other languages.
And if you don't like it, just move somewhere else where they don't speak it.
Don't get me wrong. English is an extremely difficult language
Absolutely.
to learn, right? I've learned that, it's like when you look at like Spanish, French, German, like it's backwards to me, but really English is the one that's backwards.
Yeah.
Right?
English is actually considered one of the hardest languages to learn.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
At least we don't have.
It's just a mixed mash of a ton of other languages. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the bastardization of a lot of languages. At least we don't have tonal words, I think.
Just bagging on the French today.
Voila.
Do French use tonal words?
Like, I forget what it is. Like, they don't use like consonants or something like that. Or
Something like that.
Because I mean, not to say that all those languages, most Asian languages are tonal. I know in like
F that, dude.
I think in Tagalog. Let's see if I remember this. Learned this at the MTC. My is no new silk.
Mm-hmm.
It's a uptone, downtone, or mountain tone. That would be hard, and that's very common in Asian languages. But our English is difficult for other reasons.
Where did you do your mission?
Mission?
Yeah.
South Side of Chicago.
So you got to learn English.
I learned something. I won't call it English.
This movie would never get made. Have you ever seen Airplane?
Yes.
Do you remember
the ebonics part?
Yeah. Like they would never make that today because it'd be racist. But yeah, so like there's these couple of black guys on the airplane, right? And they're speaking Ebonics, it's English, right? It's just it's slang.
Yeah.
Well, nobody can understand what they're saying, but there's this white old Meemaw sitting right next to him, and she's like, oh, like the stewardess was trying to help him or something like that.
She comes up with her little purse and it's just, excuse me, I know a little bit of Ebonics. She's like, oh, ma'am. She's like, what you gonna do, flipping that spin when you grab the jack? And they're like, smack my back, and they just go back and forth.
You have to look at the clip. Go to YouTube. Look up
Airplane Ebonics.
It's
Oh
hilarious.
my gosh,
It's hilarious.
I will. I've never heard of this. Airplane
great.
Ebonics.
Yeah, but south side of Chicago, yeah, definitely a language of its own.
I mean,
Yes.
even in a country like the United States, there's just like different connotations, slang.
I had a missionary from Australia over at our house, right? And this is in Georgia. My dad's wife she is a Southern Belle through and through. She's born and raised in Central Georgia, right? And she's got a Georgia Southern accent.
Twang, yeah.
Exactly, yeah. So he was over there for Thanksgiving, and he speaks English, of course, right? So we start having this conversation about something, and like he just leans over to me because I don't have that Southern twang all the way, and he's just like, "What did she say?" I was like, "She's speaking English, man."
I remember my brother served in Manchester, England, and we had one of his bishops over with the English accent, and their slang completely different. Mm-hmm. There were several times where I was like, "What do you mean?" Like he kept saying, "Did you lay in today?" I'm like, "Lay in." It's like, "Yeah, lay in." What are you talking about? He's like,
"You want to fight?"
Did you sleep in?
Yeah, sleep in. Yeah.
I had the same thing when I lived in England. It was like that. I had to work at a grocery store, and this guy's coming to me, and he's like, I forget what he was asking me. He was asking me for tomato paste. And I was like, tomato paste? I was like, what the hell is tomato paste? And like, I can't have anybody help me because I'm the only American there. And I'm just like, what the hell's tomato paste? And I'm like, what's it look like? And he's just like, it's a red bottle. I was like, ketchup? And he's like, no, tomato paste. And so we're walking around and like he finally sees it. He's like, yeah, right here. And it's Heinz ketchup. And I was like, it says ketchup on the bottle. He's like, it's tomato paste.
You're just like about to shoot yourself. You're like, oh my god.
Yeah, but I mean, I was there for almost a year, and within a couple months, I had picked it up. Like I knew what the slang was. A lot of it. It's like when somebody's talking about a bird, they're talking about a girl.
Or like Spanglish has developed in the last couple decades.
Tex-Mex.
Yeah. Yeah. My wife loves when I speak Spanglish. When I'm like, oh, I want tres tacos. Tres tacos. Or give me some agua.
With some jalapenos.
Yeah.
Oh man, yeah. I used to do that on purpose. Oh, I still do that on purpose just to piss people off.
Yeah.
Chipotle. I got my ex, a fluent Spanish speaker, to say Chipotle everywhere, and it just pisses everybody off because they're just like, "You speak Spanish? It's Chipotle," and she's like, "It's Chipotle."
Oh man.
Oh, that's great.
Anyways,
that's it. That's all my stories, man. That's all I got. So
it's good stuff, man. Good
pat
stuff.
on the back for me. I did my homework.
Blake, I think you had something you wanted to talk about too, right?
Yes.
So I think it's a story by Yahoo News. Is that correct?
Yeah, I love.
It's super credible.
Yeah, super credible. I love Yahoo News because I find that they tend to sway a little liberal, but the comment section is always super conservative.
Oh, it's off the chain.
Oh yeah,
it's
yeah.
off the chain.
Actually, I think Yahoo is, they almost went bankrupt and then they got reorganized, and I think they're doing a lot
that
better.
That sounds
now.
like somebody else right now. That's interesting, but I won't derail this. We'll do one of your topic.
Go on.
Let's see what happens to Twitter.
Let's do it. So yeah, the title is "University to Pay $400,000 to Professor Punished for Refusing to Use Students' Preferred Pronouns."
Yeah. So back in 2018, Ohio State professor was doing asked a question. A student got it right. The professor said, "Yes, sir, that's correct," and they went on with the lesson. After class was over, the student comes over and says, "I prefer female pronouns, not male. So don't say." Yes, sir, again. And he said, well, I'll call you by whatever name you want, but I'm going to use the pronouns that I think are appropriate for you.
Correct pronouns.
Yes. And he cited his religious preferences, that biology is eternal. So he wasn't going to do that. The student took great offense to this, reported him to the university. The university reprimanded him, put him on watch list, and had his name on the record. And he didn't think this was fair. This went against his First Amendment for free speech and to stand up for his religion. So that happened in 2018. Just recently, 4 years later, he's been taking the university to court to say that, hey, you should not reprimand me for doing that kind of stuff. The university, 4 years later, finally settled $400,000 to pay this professor for not reprimanding him correctly.
I actually think that he told the judge, he goes, I have a First Amendment right to be able to say what I want to say.
Yeah.
And the judge was like, you're right.
Yeah.
It's in the Constitution.
I'm happy.
Literally.
First Amendment right to use because pronouns is language. He's allowed to say it because he's not threatening. And he even offered a compromise. I'll call you by a different name. I'll call you by a female name, but I won't use pronouns. For those of you who don't know, I had a cousin who's transgender. My best friend in the whole world. He and I did everything together.
Your cousin?
My cousin.
Okay. Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah. And I say he and she, I slipped before because when I think about our childhood memories, it's always a he. Came out transgender, and I was supportive enough to call her she when she wanted. But this is a quote from her. She said, "I don't care what people use for my pronouns. I am a big enough believer in free speech that can say whatever they want. However, I have picked a name for myself, and you should use that name because it's just disrespectful to say other things." But I always found that admirable.
Well, it's Caitlyn Jenner, right? She wants to be called Caitlyn Jenner. I call her Caitlyn Jenner. Now, if you get down to the biology of it, of course, I disagree. Caitlyn Jenner is not a woman. Caitlyn Jenner is a man. He has an X chromosome, right?
Yeah, I believe.
I'm sorry, an X and a Y chromosome. It makes him a man.
Yeah, I believe Ben Shapiro touched on this a while ago. He said, I have no problem, going to dinner or, like having a conversation, hanging out, talking to somebody, transgender individual or, a lesbian, gay, whatever, blah, blah, blah. He's like, and I have no problem addressing them by how they want to be addressed in a private setting,
Polite society.
Polite society, right? He has no problem saying that. He's like, but if I'm on a public discourse forum, if I'm in a public square, if I'm, being somewhere where, this is going to be reaching to hundreds of thousands, millions of people, he's like, that's a completely different story, right? And at that moment, that's you got to say the facts, right? Yeah. It's about facts, not feelings at that moment, right? Because he's a public figure, and I agree with that 100%. You're being respectful as you can be, but at the same time, if you're touting your beliefs, if you're touting your moral compass and things like that to other people and trying to espouse your ideas, you have to address the facts and not people's feelings.
Yeah, but our church teaches love as all churches teach, right? Christ teaches love, right? And you should never hate anybody for whatever beliefs they may have or whatever it is, right? Love the sinner, hate the sin. Yep. Okay. Now you can argue whether or not things are sin or whatever. That's another topic. Okay. But from a Christian perspective, I'm going to love the person no matter what they are, or no matter what they want to be called, no matter what they believe, right? I'm going to love them. And in polite society, I'm going to address them as, like you said, it's like if you want to be called, your name's Steve and you want to be called Sharon, I'm going to call you Sharon, Yep. But when we get into, again, like you just said, Mike, we get into facts, well, Sharon is a man, I don't care what you can cut off whatever or add whatever you want. You either have an X and an X chromosome or an X and a Y chromosome. That makes you a man. Okay. And then you can get into the semantics of, well, that's different between gender and sex. No, it's not. From all the biology, it's always been that way.
Yeah. You can either bear a child or you can't. Right.
Yeah. Well, they talk about
that's just the way it is.
They talk about like intersex. Like Steven Crowder did his thing where he goes out and he talks to people. Change My Mind segment, and he met somebody that was like intersex, and it's like you're 0.08% of the population.
And even with intersex people, typically they only have one genital that's fully developed, or neither. Yeah. There is no hermaphrodite human.
Yeah.
So they usually have a primary.
Yeah. The idea that we will reorganize society and the way society functions and thinks and speaks to conform to the 0.8% of the population is ridiculous.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah. It is. And the biggest problem I have with transgender women are women, transgender men are men, is it's ignoring some really important medical and mental uniqueness that they have. Like men and women have different medical treatments and different diagnostic tools that is important to know. And I think when a person wants to transition due to some legitimate gender dysphoria, they are going to have some unique mental and biological issues that are not a man's issue, not a woman's issue, that is unique to a transgender person. And trying to say that it's the same is discrediting the help that they really, truly need. Why don't we celebrate that difference? It's, if you're going through this transition and you are in a better mentally health state, even though majority of them don't necessarily get there, but if you are in the present that going through these transition does make you happier, more fulfilled, then we should celebrate that uniqueness about you and not pretend that you are the same as everyone else. You have unique needs, and that's a beautiful thing, not a terrible thing.
Yeah, I think where did I hear? I think it was on Timcast IRL. They were talking about transgenderism and when estrogen, the hormone, was finally being able to be synthesized, and how from that point onwards, and all these hormones were finally able to be synthesized. From that point onward, gender dysphoria was just like exploded, right? And they're like, well, one of the reasons is pharma has a real financial incentive to push these hormones, right, and the use of them.
Yeah.
And and obviously they don't have any repercussions from the use of that. And obviously, they were talking about like situations where like they had somebody on the show, and it was a woman, and she said when she was younger, the thing she was terrified of the most in her life was like for her to start her period, right, and like bleed every month and things. Like she's like, if somebody had come to me and be like, I can give you a pill that if you take every month, it will stop. You won't ever have to deal with that ever. Ever. And also like, developing breasts or something like that, she said. And she was like, I would have taken it immediately. You like without reservation, mate. And it's like, that just goes back to like when you're young, your brain is still developing, your ideals are, your self-identity is still developing. And if at that moment somebody like comes and introduces something to you to like help you identify it with what you think, you want, at that moment when your hormones are raging and all that kind of stuff, it's you're more likely to go into that side of gender dysphoria.
Yeah. Well, I got two things. First of all, my perspective on being conservative, quasi-libertarian, and the amalgamation of those two, whatever you want to call it, it's my biggest thing is leave me the hell alone, right? I'll leave you alone. You leave me alone. We'll respect each other, right? Yeah. We'll have a fence, but we'll respect each other. We respect each other's boundaries. You can do whatever you want on that side of the fence. I don't care as long as it doesn't affect my side of the fence. We're good. We're going to be good neighbors.
And you don't get fined for using the wrong pronouns.
Yeah. But the other thing is that I lost my train of thought about
transgenderism, leaving you alone.
I think it had to do with so you say that you identify as something, right? You're going to identify as a man, whether you're a woman or vice versa. Okay, why is it that I can identify as being black? Why can't I identify as being Asian
or 200 years old?
Or 10. Yeah. What we are seeing now, it's the slippery slope argument. Yep. We're starting to see people who are identifying as younger people, and now you're starting to see this, and of course they're always going to say, this is what a conservative would bring up, pedophilia.
Yep.
Right.
What are they trying to call it? There's like a verbiage now they're trying to call it
groomer.
No, not that. What's it called? Man.
I just heard it on the radio.
I gotta look it up. Hold on.
Yeah, it's like you find yourself. Oh, it's something sex attracted or age attracted or something like that. And we're basically like, let's say you have a 40-year-old man who they don't call them pedophiles anymore. It's like youth attracted or something like that. It's like
youth sex attracted.
Yeah, you find themselves attracted to 10-year-olds.
Yeah,
that's pedophilia. You wrap it up, put a lipstick on a pig. It's pedophilia. But this is the slippery slope that you start going down. Okay, when you start sitting there saying that you can identify as anything, well, this is what happens. Okay.
Yeah, they've already ruled. There was one case of an older man trying to be recognized and identified as 5-10 years younger. That specific court case, they ruled it. You can't do that legally. Yeah, we'll see what happens in 10, 20 years. But there are other people who are going through procedures to look like a different race.
Yes, absolutely.
It's already Michael Jackson. Happening. I mean, that's like the oldest example that we can think of.
Well,
right?
you have Rachel Dolezal, which is the biggest one most people know about, right? She is pure. She is white. Her mom and dad are white. Yep. She identified as black, and she worked at like the NAACP, and she told everybody she was black. I think she actually was married to a black guy and stuff like that. And it's like personally, like if like say Mike, you're Hispanic, but you sit there and say, well, I identify as white. I could care less. I don't care, right? But guess what? You're not white.
Yeah. So going back first to a point that Blake said, they're already trying to pass laws for like that. I think I brought up before on the podcast, like in California, they tried passing laws saying to lower the age of consent to like 14 or something like that. And it's just like, as soon as I was like, I got to click off this page, man, because this is freaking ridiculous.
The other FBI guys are like, what are you looking at?
Yeah. I'm just typing to my FBI van outside. I was like, hey, you guys want to see something nasty? But and then another point towards Brian, it's I've for a long time I've had the same political stance, like, hey, like, leave me alone, I'll leave you alone, right? But I've there's a couple of podcasts that I've listened to, and they brought up a good point. A lot of people, a lot of conservatives, or a lot of libertarians always have that point, right? I'll leave you alone, you leave me alone. But at the same time, like, the left never does.
Oh, they can't.
Right? And so, like, the more that we push that narrative of, like, hey, just leave me alone and you can do your thing, the more that they pass whatever they want to do, and the more ground that conservatism and morally just people lose ground every single day. Mm-hmm. And I think that's got to stop, right? Yeah. Like, you got to hold your ground, and if the other side would hold to, I'll leave you alone and you leave me alone, that's fine. But the left never does, man. So I mean, it's a sad world we live in. But I mean, conservatism, right-leaning people, they got to start pushing back, man. And I think you're seeing that kind of in the
most people in their personal lives are conservative. Like, you look at, especially minorities, they go to church, they're heavily in a family. Those are conservative values, right? But the thing is like, they tend to get into, when it comes to voting, social stuff, right?
Yeah. Social acceptance.
Right. So they actually had where they went to, they were talking, with the transgender, when it first started coming out, they had this group of transgender folks that went to, like, these black pastors, and they're like, hey, we wanted you, to sign on to this and help us out with this, because, this is our civil rights. And the black pastors just laughed at them, and they go, this is nothing like the civil rights. You did not have fire hoses being rained down on you. You did not have dogs being sicked on you. Somebody called you a name in Twitter. It's like, get over it.
I mean, but that's their, what is it? The hill they'll die on. Unfortunately.
And get rid of your Twitter account.
Yeah, and I don't agree that you should be saying these names to these people. I don't agree you should treat these people wrong, that you should treat these people bad. You should love them. But when it comes down to, if the government says, well, you know what, we're going to make you part of this, and you know what, your church has to allow same-sex marriage or transgender marriage. No, absolutely not. That's not what we believe in.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can go to a different church or start your own church.
What they're doing now, they're doing that now.
Or I think there was this big case in California. I think it might have been California. I think where a bakery, transgender couple came in, or a gay couple came in, and were like, hey, we want you to bake us a cake. Saying they're like, sorry, like, this is against my beliefs. Like, no, we refuse to do that. And they I think it went all the way to, like, the Ninth Circuit or something.
No, it went to the Supreme Court.
Court.
It's the same guy, actually.
Yeah.
It was like 3 or 4 different times. They keep going after this guy.
And it's just like, just leave this guy alone, man. He's just trying to run a bakery. Like, are you really, you took this all the way to the Supreme Court over a freaking cake,
So
man?
Steven Crowder, I don't know if you remember this is an old video. Steven Crowder actually went to a Muslim baker and was like, hey, I want you to bake me a gay Muslim cake. And they were like, no.
No, I don't think so.
No. Right?
Yeah, man. It's just
the baker did win that case.
No, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, of course, but the fact that it went all the way to the Supreme Court is ridiculous.
Mm-hmm. Right? Yeah, but the junct of it. What I was saying is that it's like you same thing when you get an abortion. You always hear it's like, I want you to stay out of my body, stay out of my bedroom, but you keep forcing me into it. I don't want to be in there, right? I want nothing to do with it. I don't want my tax dollars to be a part of it. I don't want the government to be involved in it. That is a personal decision that you make on your own. However you decide to get married or whatever, that's between you and that other person. That has nothing to do with me. But when you force me into it, right, by passing laws, then now we're going to have a problem.
Go for it, Blake.
If you really want to make abortions available for everyone, take every rich person, every celebrity that is for abortions, let them create their own charitable fund, so you don't have to use taxes, and you can have that be self-sustaining program.
That is like a couple topic. That is like an entire 2-hour segment about abortion.
I mean, did you guys see that new law coming up in Colorado where they're trying to allow abortions up to birth?
Oh. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Like, are you kidding me, dude?
Yep.
Up until birth, man. What the freak are these people?
Joe Rogan brought this up where it didn't necessarily have to do with abortion. I think it was something else, but he's like, why is it that, you always have these leftists that are always, and Joe Rogan is a liberal, he's socialist.
Yeah.
But he's like, you have Texas that is doing something, right? Which Texas is conservative, right? So they're gonna pass stuff that's gonna be very, very against abortion, or whatever. And he's like, why is it that you keep trying to go to Texas and make Texas more like California? He's like, you have California, you have New York. Let Texas be Texas.
Yeah, they just can't stand where freedom prevails, man. They have to
Or just
have
a
they have
difference.
to have people bow down to what they believe in, or what with their delusion, whatever it is. They just can't see other people being happy, just being who they are. That's the problem, right? Because they're so, I don't want to say like, upset with themselves or disgusted with themselves, but there's got to be something personally inside of you that you just are not happy with, to see somebody else happy and like be like, I got to ruin that.
Yeah, but you never see these people out here, these social justice warriors or whatever, screaming at China because they just made the new Harry Potter movie take out the fact that Dumbledore is gay.
Yeah.
They're not screaming about that. They're not out in Saudi Arabia demanding that Saudi Arabia recommend same sex rights.
Yep.
But in the
Or
United States,
education for women.
sure,
Or the Uyghurs. I mean, come on.
Yeah. No, you look at all these atrocities against gays or even trans in other countries all around the world, but the United States is always the focus. The United States is always the biggest monster in these things.
Yeah, it would have been nice to have a president that go in front of the UN and try to nationalize a standard to take care of gay people, like Trump. They actually did.
Yeah.
Man, just politics is just effed, man. I mean, the people that conservatives and right-leaning people vote into, like, they're supposed to protect, our freedom and civil liberties, and they don't do shit.
Dude, I'm seeing like the Republicans in Utah, and I'm just like, what the hell is wrong with you guys?
Oh, Mittens, man, that dude needs to go.
Well, the governor of Utah,
The governor
he's out
too.
there doing his pronouns on that
Yeah.
thing, and and then he voted, or he tried to veto that transgender it was only some bill where they try to pass where it's only boys could compete with boys and
For
only girls
athletes,
could
yeah,
and
yeah.
he tried to veto it, and of course they overrode it. Even Democrats were like, no.
And also the governor of freaking Kentucky for abortions, dude.
Yeah.
And then the legislator had to override his veto. It's like you do know who your demographic and voter base is, right? Like you do understand that if you continue down this path, you guys are going to be gone.
It's just virtue
Because
signaling.
these midterms are going to be absolutely insane, man. I can't wait to see what happens. Like the absolute just like stick in the spoke wheel is just going to have to just destroy the entire machine here.
Yeah, but if you're going to go out and vote, don't just vote for somebody because they're a Republican.
Yeah.
I would rather have someone like Mitt Romney lose and a Democrat get in, because that guy is just he's a
Well, you
turd.
know where he stands.
Yeah,
You absolutely know where he stands all the way, all the time.
Yeah.
that's
Well, like
it.
we brought up one time, we said, would we rather have Tulsi Gabbard or Mitt Romney as president? We all said Tulsi Gabbard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because she has strong values that I can align myself with, right? I recognize the same values in myself, right?
Yeah.
But someone like Mitt Romney, who's just he's virtue signaling. He wants to be on the right side of history for voting for Ketanji Brown Jackson when he just voted against her the election before, or when
She went to the appellate court.
yeah. He just wanted to be recognized.
Like nothing's changed in like a year or two.
I
right?
honestly, go ahead.
No, you're good.
I honestly cannot see how anyone can vote for her. She was asked a question about how she views the Constitution, and I'm trying to remember her response. She had like no opinion about it, or she didn't want to take a stance on it.
I think she didn't want to take a stance on it.
Yeah,
She's going to the Supreme Court.
The fact
That is your main job.
the Constitution is your only job.
Yeah, I mean the main point of that is that people just don't care, man.
Yeah, I mean,
People know either way, whatever they do, she's gonna get voted in.
She's
And also,
replacement
like,
buyer.
they don't need. There's people that are like, do you know who the new Supreme Court justice is? And they're like, there was a new Supreme Court justice.
she's the first black Supreme Court justice,
Oh, I never knew that.
except for
Wait.
She's
The only one we like.
oh yeah. It's like conservatives always hate blacks, or they don't want a black person on the Supreme Court, but yet the only one that we like is Clarence Thomas.
Coney Barrett is actually not bad, man.
No, I'll take Alito. Like Clarence
Alito,
Thomas and Alito are the dream team, man. That's Bacardi and Cola right there, baby.
who's the other one?
Cool. Jack and Coke.
Is that racist?
How's Kavanaugh been doing?
I think he's a fence toter, man.
It's not that bad. I think he leans more towards the right when it comes to more religious stuff, but he does have his moments.
He's like this the right Supreme Court justice that's just like in the back. They're just like, hey, you're gonna vote this way, and like that's it. You know what I mean? Like
He's not yet.
I don't think I don't
He's
think
not
he's
a driving
comfortable enough
force.
rocking the boat yet. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
From everything that he went through. So, did you guys see that they're trying to disqualify Marjorie Taylor Greene from running? The judge just voted that she could have an opponent in the race. It's like, dude, everybody loves her, man. Like they're gonna try throwing so much money at her opponent.
from what the media told me, I was like, I always push it away because they always tell you what a monster she is and the Jewish lasers and all that stuff she talks about. Then she goes on Tim Pool's podcast and like all of a sudden I was just like, and I didn't believe that crap, but I was always just like, I didn't really know anything about her. I'm not going to support her just because she's a Republican and she's from Georgia, which, I went to college in Georgia. I love Georgia a lot, but it's like, I'm always like, let me learn who this person is, right? So I was always worried about that stuff. But when she went on Tim Pool's podcast, I was like, oh, she's a straight up G. She's a gangster.
I'm like, dude, first female president right there. Like,
when she was talking about the voting stuff, we talked about it on this podcast before. It's like, that's straight up gangster, man.
Oh, man. And then she got a little coalition together. And like they take shifts. I'm like, yes, please.
She's a person that looks at the political system and doesn't like say, yeah, it's been going on like this forever, so just go with it. She's like, no, it's stupid. Let's change it. And I like just how she's totally up front pranking and messing up with the system and forcing people to like take a stand on stuff.
Yeah. I mean, she's grinding legislative passing legislature to a halt, man. It's great. Like, just grind the government, stop passing all this garbage bills, man. We're just wasting money.
I have a big problem with having full-time policymakers. Like, I wish our government is too big, too much money to have it all be run by volunteers, although maybe it could. But having a full-time policymaker, you're going to find stuff to make stupid laws about because it's your full-time job. And it's just going to keep going till you have like stupid measurements for building inspections or a bunch of Title IV, Subset 2, Subset C regulations on how to do stuff because you have to find something to do with your job. You don't want to lose your job, so you have to find a new thing to regulate.
Yeah, I think all laws should have like sunset clauses, That'd be so great.
Oh, I know, a little off topic. And I know we don't have much time here. Have you guys seen that whole thing with the libs of TikTok?
Oh my gosh, yes. It's something I kind of wanted to bring up, but we were on a different topic. But it's freaking hilarious, dude. Yeah, so, people just losing their shit right now, dude.
Yeah, so the libs of TikTok, it's a female, but she's anonymous as far as like, I don't think.
Not anymore, man.
No, okay, yeah. So, but yeah, so all she would do was like, you would have TikTok, you would have these liberals on TikTok that would post these crazy videos, and she would literally just take the video and she would post it onto her page, or she'd post it on an Instagram or post it on a Twitter and say, these are what these people are saying. She didn't change anything. She didn't edit anything. She just posted what they're saying. And I think Twitter banned her because they're saying, oh, she promotes hate speech for posting what these people are saying.
Yeah. That means everybody she posted about, they all need to be banned.
Yeah, so then you have this, I don't know what her name was, this report. I can't even recall her reporter.
So this reporter, once
Taylor Lorenz.
She herself had come out just a few weeks ago, crying and, let's be real here, bitching and moaning about being doxxed and how, the right was coming for her personal information and all that kind of stuff. And then she goes and freaking doxes this lady for posting all this stuff. I'm just like, the hypocrisy, man.
Yeah.
The absolute hypocrisy of this freaking reporter that just is like, oh, people are doxing me.
Yeah, like imagine if you had somebody on TikTok that was going, the conservatives of TikTok, and you literally just post what these people say.
Yep.
There wouldn't be one conservative on planet Earth that would have an issue with that.
They'd be like liking it. They're like, yes.
I can't like it enough. Yeah. But it's like, this is literally what you're saying. These are what these people are saying, and you're gonna dox her because she's not changing anything. She's just posting what you're saying. So what you don't like is that the sunshine is shining through the cracks.
The nasty cracks. There's some disgusting stuff, man, that they posted on there. I was just like, cringeworthy.
Yeah. So, but yeah, sorry, I didn't.
No, it's a great article. I mean, they've been it's been talked about like all day. I think like on Breaking Points, and I think Tim Pool also talked about it.
We need to do a 5-minute react to some of this stuff one of these days.
Yeah, we're planning to. I know we've been talking about getting a second episode out every week. We're just trying to work schedules out and stuff because we're still sexy workforce.
Yeah, having sexy time with the government right now.
Exactly.
Paying taxes.
Still feel it.
Yeah.
Anyways,
shout out to any of you who haven't paid your taxes yet. Good luck.
Because you're late.
Yeah, you're like,
You're gonna get double whammied.
Well, yeah, I'm not even. I was about to go down on inflation, but no, we won't do that.
You better get a large serving spoon because it's coming. Anyway,
File an extension for your extension.
extension. Get a loan to pay taxes.
Yeah, but we just want to say thank you for coming in and viewing our video. Thank you for watching us. Thanks for the people who've been responding. Thank you for all of our supporters out there. You keep growing. We're going to keep producing these videos. We're going to keep coming out with great and exciting things to talk about. We want to hear from you guys. We want you guys to support us. Mike, where can people support us?
yeah. So if you guys want to support our work and help us grow the podcast, you can find us on Locals, which is tied to our Rumble page as well as our YouTube page. Make sure you guys subscribe to the channel, share with your friends and family. That always helps a lot. And make sure to hit that like button and leave us a comment. It also helps with the YouTube algorithm, helps promote the channel. And as always, leave us ideas, topics you guys want us to talk about. And as always, thanks a lot. Anything you want to say, Blake?
Stay savage and stay saintly.
All right.
Beautiful. See you later, guys.